In the late 1990s, towering over the Houston skyline, stood Enron, a name synonymous with innovation, power, and unprecedented wealth. It was America's darling, hailed as the future of energy, a company that seemed to conjure billions out of thin air. Its stock price soared, its executives were lauded as geniuses, and Wall Street investors clamored for a piece of what appeared to be an unstoppable empire. From luxury boardrooms to bustling trading floors, the prevailing sentiment was clear: Enron could do no wrong. They were the arrogant giants, convinced of their own invincibility, unaware of the treacherous ground beneath their gleaming facade. At the helm of this burgeoning titan were Kenneth Lay, the charismatic founder, and Jeffrey Skilling, the intellectual powerhouse CEO. Lay, with his political connections, set the grand vision, while Skilling, with a background in management consulting, engineered Enron's radical transformation. They moved beyond merely producing energy, pioneering a new market to trade it like any other commodity. This visionary shift, coupled with an asset-light model that divested physical assets, promised boundless growth. The future, they claimed, belonged to those who could master the abstract, the complex, and the seemingly invisible. Enron's innovations weren't just in trading, they extended to their accounting. A controversial technique called mark-to-market accounting allowed them to project future profits from long-term contracts and record them immediately on their books. Imagine signing a 20-year deal and booking all 20 years of anticipated revenue today. This wasn't merely aggressive, it was a potent illusion, creating the appearance of robust earnings even when actual cash flow was weak. It was a financial sleight of hand, conjuring prosperity out of future forecasts, a perilous game built on assumptions and wishful thinking, not tangible income. The true mastermind behind Enron's financial trickery was Andrew Fastow, the company's brilliant yet ruthless chief financial officer. Fastow, driven by ambition and a thirst for power, devised a labyrinthine network of off-balance sheet entities. These were known as special purpose entities, or SPEs. His mandate was simple: remove Enron's crippling debt and failing assets from its official financial statements, making the company appear far healthier than it truly was. It was an elaborate stage production, where the dirtiest secrets were swept backstage, out of sight from unsuspecting investors and regulators. Fastow's SPEs, given names like LJM1 and Chuco, were ostensibly independent partnerships. In reality, they were intricately linked to Enron, often funded by banks and even Enron executives themselves. Enron would transfer its struggling assets or enormous debts to these entities. Because the SPEs were technically separate, the losses and liabilities vanished from Enron's primary balance sheet. The company could then claim soaring profits, while the ticking time bomb of debt was effectively hidden in plain sight, a complex financial shell game that defied transparency and basic accounting principles. For years, one of the Big Five accounting firms, Arthur Andersen, served as Enron's auditor. Their responsibility was to scrutinize Enron's books and ensure financial accuracy. Yet, repeatedly, Andersen either failed to detect the fraud or, more damningly, chose to ignore it. The firm was not just an auditor, it was also a consultant to Enron, earning millions in fees. This dual role created an undeniable conflict of interest, blurring the lines between oversight and complicity, turning a supposed guardian into a silent enabler of deception. With Andersen's stamp of approval and Enron's dazzling reported earnings, Wall Street was utterly seduced. Analysts issued glowing strong buy ratings, celebrating Enron's innovative business model. Investment banks lined up to underwrite deals, eager to participate in the perceived boom. Mutual funds, pension funds, and millions of individual investors poured their life savings into Enron stock, convinced they were investing in a sure thing. The collective delusion was profound, fueled by greed and a profound lack of skepticism, all blind to the ticking financial time bomb beneath the surface. Inside Enron, the corporate culture was a pressure cooker of arrogance and cutthroat ambition. Employees were incentivized to meet aggressive profit targets, by any means necessary. A notorious rank-and-yank system annually fired the lowest-performing 15% of employees, fostering an environment of fear and relentless competition. This culture not only tolerated aggressive accounting but actively encouraged it, pushing individuals to manipulate numbers to save their jobs and earn bonuses. The ethical lines blurred, then vanished entirely, as the pursuit of paper profits overshadowed all else. Despite the outward success, whispers of doubt began to circulate. A few perceptive journalists and independent analysts, scrutinizing Enron's increasingly complex financial statements, raised red flags. They questioned the opacity of its dealings, the lack of transparency around its numerous partnerships, and the disparity between reported profits and actual cash flow. But these lone voices were largely drowned out by the chorus of praise from Wall Street and the financial media. Their warnings were dismissed as mere cynicism, while the Enron juggernaut continued its seemingly unstoppable ascent. Amidst the corporate euphoria, one woman dared to challenge the empire from within. Sharon Watkins, a vice president of corporate development, discovered the intricate web of deceit. In August 2001, she sent a 7-page anonymous memo to Kenneth Lay, detailing her grave concerns. She warned that Enron was an accounting mess that could implode in a wave of accounting scandals. Her courageous act was a desperate plea to avert disaster, a stark reminder that even in the most corrupt environments, truth often finds a way to surface, even if ignored. Kenneth Lay famously dismissed Watkins' warnings, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed Enron's carefully constructed illusion might hold. But the cracks were beginning to show. In August 2001, CEO Jeffrey Skilling abruptly resigned, citing personal reasons, a move that sent tremors through Wall Street. The Securities and Exchange Commission, spurred by growing concerns and possibly Watkins' memo, began an informal inquiry into Enron's opaque accounting practices. The market's confidence, once unshakable, started to erode, and the house of cards began to sway precariously. The intricate web of SPEs, designed to hide debt, now began its devastating unraveling. As Enron's stock price plummeted, the company's guarantees to these off-balance sheet entities were triggered, forcing billions of dollars in previously hidden debt to surge back onto Enron's official books. The balance sheet, once pristine, now showed a colossal amount of liabilities. The truth, long suppressed, burst forth with cataclysmic force. The company's carefully constructed image of financial health shattered, revealing the grotesque reality of its deep insolvency. As the scandal intensified, Arthur Andersen made a fatal error. Facing intensifying scrutiny, Andersen employees in Houston began a desperate, organized campaign to destroy thousands of documents related to Enron. Emails, audit work papers, and critical files were shredded, deleted, and erased. This wasn't merely negligence, it was an act of deliberate obstruction of justice, an attempt to conceal their complicity and shield themselves from accountability. The supposed guardian of corporate ethics had transformed into a partner in crime, frantically trying to erase their tracks. By October 2001, Enron was in freefall. The SEC officially launched a formal investigation, and the company was forced to restate its earnings, erasing nearly $600 million in reported profits from previous years. Rating agencies downgraded Enron's debt to junk status. Panic gripped the market. Desperate attempts to secure a lifeline, including a proposed merger with rival Dynegy, collapsed. The stock, once trading at over $90, plunged relentlessly, wiping out billions in investor wealth. The once mighty giant, built on a foundation of lies, was now plummeting toward inevitable ruin. On December 2, 2001, the unthinkable happened. Enron Corporation, once the 7th largest company in America, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It was, at the time, the largest corporate bankruptcy in U.S. history. Over 20,000 employees lost their jobs, their pensions, and much of their retirement savings, which were heavily invested in Enron stock. Millions of investors watched their portfolios evaporate. The arrogance had come full circle, from making billions out of thin air to crashing to absolute zero, leaving behind a trail of devastation and disillusionment. The fallout was swift and severe. Kenneth Lay, Jeffrey Skilling, and Andrew Fastow were all indicted on multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and insider trading. Lay tragically died before he could be sentenced, maintaining his innocence to the end. Skilling was convicted and sentenced to 24 years in prison, later reduced. Fastow, facing a potentially longer sentence, pleaded guilty and cooperated with prosecutors, testifying against his former colleagues. The scales of justice, though slow, eventually began to tip, seeking accountability for the immense suffering caused by their deceit. Arthur Andersen, once a venerable name in accounting, also faced its reckoning. Its conviction for obstruction of justice due to the shredding of Enron documents effectively sealed its fate. Though the Supreme Court later overturned the conviction on technical grounds, the damage was irreversible. Andersen, one of the Big Five accounting firms, was forced to surrender its licenses and cease to exist, bringing down an 89-year-old institution. Its downfall served as a brutal, unprecedented warning about the dire consequences of ethical compromise and corporate complicity. The Enron scandal sent shockwaves through the financial world, leading to a profound re-evaluation of corporate governance. In 2002, Congress passed the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, a landmark piece of legislation designed to restore public trust. It imposed stricter accounting standards, increased corporate accountability, and enhanced penalties for white-collar crimes. The act mandated greater independence for auditors and required CEOs and CFOs to personally certify the accuracy of their financial statements. Enron's collapse, while devastating, forced a critical shift, aiming to prevent such a colossal fraud from ever happening again.